Greenbrier in West Virginia. It's a great resort there. It's wonderful. It's in the Allegheny Mountains. Beautiful place.
That's still it's the July 4th tournament every year, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, they hold the Greenbrier Classic there.
Speed.
I did, yeah, played.
We were down there a couple of years ago. It was nice. Visited Jack Sneed, still somewhat close to
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Stopped in. It was beautiful. Really nice.
Yeah, they just sold some more of Sam's memorabilia
They did.
for about $1 million.
Heritage auctions, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Did they really? Did you keep a lot of your stuff?
Yeah, Jack built he built the museum at the Ohio State University campus, and it's not well attended at all. Yeah, it's just who wants to go see stuff, you know. There are a few items that's fine if it's a quick look through, but it's not an hour type of visit.
Do you keep? Because I'm surprised at how much of his stuff is kept. He kept a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well, we accumulate a lot of stuff. We do. Yeah. Well, of course, he wins that many times. There's each tournament comes up with something, and of course all the other things that go along with his life, with his family and fishing and hunting and things like that, and football now with Nick and it's just there's very active family, big family.
Very. We're ready?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to start by thanking you for doing this, and then asking you. You grew up playing golf, so what were your memories early on of Jack Nicklaus?
Well, my first memory of him was when he won the Ohio Open against pros and amateurs alike when he was 16 years old. I saw that, I read it in the Golf World magazine. And I said, wow, 16-year-olds, they beat all the pros. That's pretty cool. And that, I was just a kid. I mean, I was just a baby. But still reading, but golf was becoming a passion of mine. And that was something. When I was growing up, I was playing some amateur golf, and my dad had a great friend by the name of Bob Willits, and Bob, who was on Jack's grade coat committee at what do you call that? Captain's Club. When Bob was a member of the Captain's Club for Jack, and he saw Jack play in the Trans-Mississippi, and I believe it was at Prairie Dunes. And Jack came off the Jack came out. Let me start this over again. One of my first memories of Jack was through my dad's best friend, Bob Willits, who saw him play at the Trans-Mississippi at Prairie Dunes, I believe. And he came back and he said to me, he said, at the beginning of the tournament, he'd watched Jack play. And he said, he went to everybody that he knew there, and he said, well, I know who the champion of this tournament's going to be. And Jack won. My first real experience with Jack and personal experience was when I was asked to play an exhibition with him at Topeka Country Club when I was 16 years old. That was a special time. It was in March. It's kind of a cold day, and we played a round of golf. But he did an exhibition before, and I watched him hit those long irons. And it was just it was stupefying, really, to see him hit those things so high and with such precision. And that. That was always, it left an indelible mark in my memory about how well he hit his long irons. And he was always, I think he was always the best long iron player that I'd ever played golf with or saw. He hit the ball softly with the long irons, and he hit it straight. And it was really special to watch him hit that shot. So my memories then were Jack was, he was the up-and-comer who was beating my hero, Arnold Palmer. And when he beat him in the U.S. Open at Oakmont in the playoff, that was Jack's first victory, and I was bummed because he beat my hero Arnold Palmer, and it was. When I look back on it, they said, well, this set the stage for him taking over the reins as the best golfer, and he kept those reins for a long, long time, all the way through '86 when he won the Masters. And that's how I determine in my own mind who's the great players, the greatest of all players. Longevity of their careers, I think is the most paramount category, if you might say, of how I judge who's the best player.
I'll get into that in a minute, because that's absolutely true. No one really, and also same with all the rivals he had over the years. But do you remember the first time you competed against Jack Nicklaus?
First time I competed was, I think the first time I played with him was when I was pretty close to the lead at the Hawaiian Open. And I learned a great lesson with Jack at that time. It was a lesson that I was actually, I was told to watch the best players play by all the pros here in Kansas City when I was growing up and turning pro. And I asked them the question, what one thing should I do when I get on the tour? And they say, play or watch the best players play. So I watched Jack a lot. In the early 70s, he was the guy. He was the man. He took over Arnold Palmer's position as the best golfer. And fortunately, I was paired with him. I want to say the 74 Hawaiian Open, 73 or 74 Hawaiian Open, maybe it was 74. And I was playing with him in the last round. And he played terribly. He couldn't drive the ball in the fairway. He was hitting the ball out of the rough all the time. And it's tough. That course is tough, hitting the ball out of the rough, that Bermuda rough. But he scrambled around and kept on making pars. And he was, by the time he got to the 17th hole, he was tied. He was in the lead. And the 17th hole is a par 3. The flag's on the back part of the green. I hit first and hit a 5-iron that just went to the back edge of the green. Hit a pretty good shot, pushed it a little bit. And then Jack took a 6-iron out. And we hit the ball about the same distance. But he hit it right toward the center, right center of the green, hit pretty much to the front edge and stopped about 50 feet short. I walk off the tee and I said, what club did you hit? He said 6-iron. I said, why didn't you hit 5? He said 6-iron, the worst I could make was bogey. Bingo. Because on that green, I knew what he was talking about. Because if he hit over that green in the bunkers are so hard that you couldn't get underneath it, and you'd blade it, maybe back over the green into a bunker, or have a long putt for par. And he took that all out with that 6-iron. He parred the last hole to win the tournament by a shot, playing not very good golf. And 2 lessons. That one with the 6-iron, and the other one was you don't have to play your best to win. You have to just manage the golf course the best. Use parts of your game that are your strengths that day. And that's what I learned from Jack.
He was a great, great golf course manager, and preparation was very important to him, as I assume it became to you later on. But let's talk about Jack and Jack's preparation and course management.
One of the things you always knew about Jack, and the press would always write about it, was that Jack went to Augusta the week before to play some golf at Augusta before the tournament. And that was preparation. And in later years, Jack said, I won a lot of tournaments by being better prepared. And that goes with, that's totally understandable. You get to know, you play the golf course a number of times, you're going to get to know that golf course. What surprises me today is a lot of these pros only play 9-hole practice rounds rather than 18-hole practice rounds. It's a little bit different now than it used to be.
Yeah, exactly. You start competing against Jack. You mentioned this before. What's really interesting to me about him is that he's the man for that almost a 25-year period in which he starts to have rivalries, first with Arnold, then Lee, then you. Johnny Miller's in there too. It's really kind of incredible how he's sort of the guy for such a long period of time.
Well, I believe that the mark of the greatest players is tied to the longevity of their careers. The longer the career, the greater the player. The longer the career, when that person wins, and that player wins over a span of, let's say, 25 years, like Jack did, it means to me that player can really play. He's kept it together. He's gone through the three phases of life, or three phases that could hurt you. As he said about Tiger, when he was asked about Tiger being the greatest player, he said, well, he's still young. And this is back 2 or 3 years or 4 years into Tiger's run, when Tiger was really running the tables. And he said, very, very plainly, typical Nicklausian, he said, well, he has to deal with three different things in his life. And the first thing is family. Second thing is injury. And the third thing is desire. And how you deal with that over the period of time, he said, I can't predict that. But those are the things that affect your ability to play top-level championship golf.
And Jack was able to overcome all three of those. Let's take family first. He was, I'm not going to say a model professional golfer, because that's, everyone does what they want to do, but he really put family first when it came to golf.
Well, Jack had a plan that he stuck to, as far as spending time with his family. With 5 children, you need to spend time as a father with 5 children, obviously, or with just one child. But Jack said he never played more than 3 weeks in a row, and he played a limited schedule. And I always like what Chichi Rodriguez said about Jack. He said he's a legend in his spare time, because he played so few tournaments. But he had a reason to, and he wanted to spend time with his family, which is admirable. And he had a career that probably maybe was made longer by the fact that he didn't play as much. And when he came out to play, he was ready to play and passionate about it. He didn't get burned out, as so many players do, I think, and especially today, in today's scheduling and the way at the end of the year tournaments really burn you out.
You talk about passion. He was incredibly passionate and a really incredibly tough competitor.
Well, always playing with Jack. Playing with Jack was always a highlight, because I watched him play, and I watched how he managed a golf course. I watched the shots he hit. And I learned from that. I learned every time I played with Jack about how he played. And I asked questions, and he'd give me straight answers. And I learned a great deal from him, and became a better player because of both watching him, as the pros here in Kansas City told me to do, and playing with him and competing against him. I learned a great deal from him.
And one of the things that we've learned in doing this and talking to Arnold and Gary and Johnny Miller and Lee is that Jack, while he respected all golfers, he really respected his top rivals, you being one of them. It must feel good to you to know that, you were obviously a tremendous and accomplished player in your own right, but to have sort of the game's greatest player talk so fondly about you must feel good for you.
Well, Jack is the ultimate pragmatist. He called a spade, and many times he said, I got myself in trouble, but I wanted to be honest, especially dealing with the press. He said, you have a job to do, and it's my job to be honest with you. And sometimes that honesty caused some issues, but the same honesty applied to his relationships with people. And one thing about Jack, he grew up with manners that I grew up with. And one of the things that he would use, good gracious, good heavens. My grandmother used those terms, but we had a common bond, and I think the way we were taught, the way we grew up. But one of the moments that I remember most about playing with Jack was when I did win the British Open at Turnberry, and we walked off the green after I sunk that short putt to win, and he grabbed me around the neck, and he said these words. He said, Tom, I gave you my best shot, but it wasn't good enough. Congratulations, I'm happy for you. And he smiled. In the throes of defeat, to be able to come up with those words and mean them, being honest, it gave me the greatest respect for the man, because those words are hard to come by when you're just coming off a defeat. I know it's hard.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think he liked to lose, but I certainly don't think he minded losing to competitors like yourself, or as I said, Arnold or Gary or Jay. He really respected the competition, and he respected getting beat by someone who just played better than him. He was very honest about that.
He is. One of the things I know about Jack is that he gave credit where credit was due. He was a pragmatist in just about everything he did, and he still does. And he is the way he dealt with the golf game was in that manner. And I make this comment, and I don't make it lightly, that Jack was the best at hitting the right shot at the right time and not making the mistakes that all the rest of us make. He rarely made a mistake of judgment. Sometimes he did. He rarely made a mistake of strategy, because he had the shot well planned in his mind. And it reminds me of one story he tells me about one thing he never did after he did it, and that was playing in the Open Championship, British Open Championship at Lytham St. Anne's. He had a one-shot lead going into the 17th hole. And he was in the fairway, and it was into the wind, and his caddy said, "You need to hit a 3-iron." He said, "No, I'm going to hit a 2-iron. I need a 2-iron to get back to the hole." And he hit this 2-iron, and he hit it flush right at the hole, typical Nicklausian long iron. And he said it hit in just short of the hole, but bounded over a knob just over the back of the green. It was a very difficult chip, and he took 3 to get down. He bogeys the last hole to lose by a shot. And he said, "I never played long again. If I ever had a choice, I was always going to play below the hole." And that, he said, those are things you learn from your mistakes. And that's Jack.
Now, again, it's a question that is, I think, maybe even funny to ask a major champion, multiple major champion like yourself, but other people certainly seem to have said this about Jack. Did you ever fear Jack Nicklaus?
I never feared him, no. I wanted to beat him in the worst way. I felt like he had the advantage because of his ability to play the game. But I wanted to beat him because he was the best of the game. And fortunately, I did a few times.
Yeah, I mean, you got he would have 20 major championships if it wasn't for the 2 that you wrestled from him, I guess. But let's talk about at Turnberry a minute and the Duel in the Sun, or so they call it. 2 of the greatest rounds 2 golfers ever played under that kind of pressure. I don't want to go through shot for shot, but just give me sort of your overall impression of those 2 days.
Well, the 2 days we played together on Saturday and Sunday. We shot 65 on Saturday, and on Sunday I eked out by a shot. But it was the last day. He got it out to a 3-shot lead, and I squared it by number 8. And then he got a 2-shot lead, and then one of those miracles happened at 15, par 3, where I made a putt from off the green and to get back to even. And then 17, he did something uncharacteristic for Jack. He missed a short putt when he really had to make the short putt to let me have a shot at winning. I had a 1-shot lead going into the last hole, kind of deja vu in 2009. And we both teed off on 18. He had a driver for some reason. I don't know why. We're downwind, and he pushed it way off to the right, yelled 4. The crowd parted. It looked like he was going to go in the gorse, and just didn't know where it ended up. I hit a shot down the left side. It was in perfect position. Before I hit my second shot, I went over and looked at Jack's ball, and he was in rough about that deep and literally this far from being unplayable. But he had a swing, right-handed swing. And I said, well, if anybody can get out of that lie, it's the best rough player in the history of the game. That's Jack Nicklaus. His upright swing, he is the best out of heavy rough that anybody's ever played. And so I go back and I hit a great shot into the green. I didn't know how close it was, but I knew he had birdie range. I didn't realize it was that close because you couldn't tell because it's so level. And then I stepped up and walked up about 40 yards or 50 yards where Jack's ball, looked over to the right, and he makes this mighty swing from the rough over there. And that much grass comes off his club head up here like that. It was just, and I said, oh, come on. You can't do that. Yeah, you can. You're Jack Nicklaus. And the ball came out bounding. Went to the right edge of the green. I said, well, that's going to hit the side slope of the green like this, and it's going to go off to the right. No, it bounced over that side slope and up on the edge of the green. I said, okay. I know what's going to happen now. He's going to make the putt. And I just had to literally plan on him making that putt. Yeah, I don't know how far it was, 30 or 40 feet. And so I'm walking up to the green, and my caddy, Alfie Files, said, well, you've got him now, mister. You've got him now. And I look over into him and said, no, Alf, he's going to make this putt. And he looks up and asks me, what are you thinking about here? But anyway, we walk up there, and Jack gets over the putt, and he gets up there like that, and he makes this hard stroke like that. And I knew 10 feet from the hole it was going to be dead center. I knew it wasn't going to lip out as dead center. And it went in the geometrical dead center of the hole. And the crowd went wild. They just went and roared and roared and roared. And they weren't slowing down. And finally I went over when the crowd was still roaring, put my ball down, took my marker away. At that time, Jack went up like this with his hands. And in 3 seconds, it went from an absolute roar to silence. And if you look back throughout the history of sport, nothing like that has ever occurred before, where it just goes from a roar to silence. Everybody respected the game and what Jack was doing there. And I went up, took my 2 practice strokes, and I rolled the ball in. And it was a moment in my career. There were 2 moments in my life that were very, very important in my entire career. One was when I was 14, and I won the Kansas City men's match play, which gave me the dream of maybe someday being a good enough player to play professional golf. And the second was right there on the 18th green at Turnberry, walking off that green with Jack, commending me for the way I played, telling me that he gave me his best shot, but it wasn't good enough. And I felt at that time I'd earned a spot and be able to compete with the best players, and knowing that I could beat them. And that was my second moment.
That's great.
We just started,
Yeah, you want to just go in there and tell them to.
Nick, do you mind cutting your clip real quick?
Yes, they had a good win against the Patriots earlier this year.
Yeah, they killed them. They killed the Patriots.
Well, Tom could be a Kansas City A's fan.
I was.
Yeah.
I was. Joe DeMaestri, I was telling the story yesterday. Joe DeMaestri, Woody Held. I had Roger Maris for a short period of time. Harry Suitcase Simpson, second base. He played for about 13 different ball clubs out of 14.
Well, they were the Yankees farm team, right? Weren't they?
They basically were. Yeah, my dad said, I don't want to go watch them. There's just a Yankees farm club.
Yeah. They won. I mean, amazing.
All our good players went to the Yankees.
All the good players. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially Roger. Although Roger was good when he was here, but he wasn't.
Yeah, he didn't. Yeah.
Hank Bauer, was he?
Yeah, Hank Bauer played.
Yeah.
Sure did.
We got Speed.
Ready? Okay. Jack says about the U.S. Open, while they are all meaningful, he always considered the Open the most important major championship. I don't know if you feel the same way, but you understand what he's saying when he says that.
When Jack says the U.S. Open is the most important championship, I concur. I grew up thinking that. My dad was a U.S. Open fan. He was a man who he knew every U.S. Open championship from 1895 on. You could always quiz him and say, "Well, who won the 1919 U.S. Open?" And he would say, "I don't know who it is right now," but he remembered all of them. And as I grew up as an amateur, the biggest tournament was the National Amateur, and that was prepared like I was preparing myself to play in the National Open or the U.S. Open, and it was always I always knew it was going to be the toughest. The toughest conditions were there, the deepest rough, the hardest greens, and the firmest greens, and you had to play golf. And fortunately, I won it one time, and that. I had a couple of other opportunities, not too many opportunities, but I had a few opportunities to win it. But it was the most special tournament to me. It's our national championship. and still remains the most important major in my view.
Jack was, a lot of people call him sort of the quintessential U.S. Open player. He won 4 of them, which is, you know, pretty good record for that sort of thing. What do you think made him a great U.S. Open player? And then what do you think made him a great major championship player? Obviously he was good, but there's something else involved in it.
No, obviously he was great. His ability to play the game and hit the shots that are necessary to win, and to think your way around a golf course, deal with the adversity that the U.S. Open golf course provides as a test. Jack was really, really good at that. One of the things that Jack, as part of his game, is he had high fades, and to hit high fade, they go into those greens softly. The higher you hit it, the better in the U.S. Open. The lower you hit it, and not so good, because that ball hits at a lower trajectory and bounces over the greens. That's a given. I'm not sure how the U.S. Open's prepared today. I haven't played too many of them, but I know that's what you always expected, and that's what you got during our careers. And Jack was, you combine that with his ability to think around the golf course and also to hit the shot out of the rough. He was the best at hitting the shots out of the rough, without a doubt, of anybody. And so when he got in trouble in the rough there, he could extract the ball and many times get on the greens.
Yeah. One of the 6 areas that we're talking about, we've touched on a bunch of them already, but one we haven't is Jack's understanding of history and appreciating his own legacy, like I assume everyone who's sort of in your place probably does. You understand your importance in the history of the game. Jack always understood his importance in the history of the game, and I think that's an interesting thing for a guy to sort of look back on. One of the ways Jack does this also is through his golf course design business. He has sort of left an imprint on playing, and then he's left an imprint physically on the golf courses. What do you think makes him such a good golf course designer, architect, sort of thing?
Well, as a designer, a golf course designer, Jack has an understanding of how the game is played. I mean, we go back to his preparation for golf courses. He had to understand what the golf course presented and how it presented, and under varying conditions. And that's how you design and build a golf course. You design with the understanding of the strategy of the hole, every particular shot, and that Jack is very good at that.
Yeah. Okay. And just, I guess the last thing is, the room is being built at the USGA Museum because he is golf's greatest major champion. He's got 18 professional majors, 2 amateur majors, so he considers 20 to be his number. It's not a hard argument. It's not something you can argue. He is golf's greatest major champion. But just to sum him up, how would you do that in terms of thinking about that?
Well, it's a remarkable feat to win as many majors as Jack has won. Just to consider the fact that there are 4 majors a year, and over a period of time he wins 20 of them, including 2 national amateurs. That is, it's unprecedented. It's remarkable. It's a testament to the way Jack has played the game, that he is focused on major championships. That goes without saying. As we talked about before, he didn't play. He played basically a limited schedule because of his family, and so he focused very precisely on winning those major championships. So those are the most important to him. Everything was important at the time, but the majors were what he strove to win, and the most, I think. And that, to me, was with Jack's makeup, he was perfectly suited for a major championship winner. His unflappable attitude toward playing the game, where he got angry at times, you could see it, and but he was quickly back on track for the next shot. He didn't let anger diminish, but sometimes accentuate his next shot, as I did, and I think that's an important distinction. Jack is he's a major championship man, and but he plays the game with a passion, and he plays the game with a passion much like he did as a kid. And I didn't see him play as a kid, but there's a lot of passionate love for the game that you only derive as a child, and it's still there. You still see it in Jack, and I've always seen it in Jack. It doesn't become an adult game. You still have that passion that you had as a kid, and that keeps you going for so many years as it has for Jack.
I have one final thing, and that is that Jack, like I mentioned to you before, when he talks about his career, he really mentions 5 other players as his rivals. He talks about Arnold, Gary, Lee, you, and Johnny Miller. Tom Weiskopf he puts in there all the time. I guess he thinks Tom had tremendous talent. But when you think about that, to be listed among who he thinks were his great rivals, and we really were. I mean, how does that make you feel in regards to him?
Well, I was trying to beat the best in the game, and fortunately I did. So I guess I left my mark.
Good. I'm good.
Great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. They got a pretty good life.
Yeah.
They really do.
Don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Speed.
It's amazing. All good. Yep. Tom, thanks again for the part on Nicklaus, and just want to get into the 1982 U.S. Open a little bit. You talked with Steve about how, the National Open, the U.S. Open was, your most important major, and that started with your dad. The fact that the U.S. Open, the 4th round always was on Father's Day, did that mean a little something special to you?
Well, it certainly did in 1982 when I made the phone call to my father after winning the tournament that both he and I wanted to win most, and that's the U.S. Open, or National Open as we called it.
Now, you'd already won 5 majors going into 82. The U.S. Open had been elusive, but you'd been in there, 74, 75, 1980. You had a bunch of top 10s. Did you feel any sort of extra pressure to win the National Open since it was the most important?
I always felt pressure to win the U.S. Open because that was the tournament that I wanted to win the most. I think it's the most important championship that we as American players play, and always have. It started with being an amateur, wanting to win the National Amateur, or the U.S. Amateur. And it really goes back to my father's passion for the U.S. Open. Knowing all the champions from 1895 on, he could always quiz them and say, who won the 1928 National Open? He would say whoever it was, and it was a fun time growing up playing with a man who had that type of passion for golf, but more importantly, the U.S. Open.
Then 1982, the U.S. Open goes to Pebble Beach. Only the second time the Open had been there. Jack had won in 72, a course that you were very familiar with, given your time at Stanford, and you played in a bunch of the Crosbys. So can you just talk a little, what did you think of Pebble Beach, the course, and obviously you must have felt pretty good being so familiar with the course going in.
Well, I always loved Pebble Beach. 72 was kind of a disappointment because when we went in there, the greens were dead. They had allowed play all the way, I believe, through Sunday. And they had so much play there that the greens are worn out, and they took the water off of them and they turned purple. In 72, the greens were just, they were dead and fast and hard as a brick. And the winning score reflected that. 82, it was a different entrance into the U.S. Open. I was playing terribly. I just was not playing well. I played the practice rounds, the 3 practice rounds, and I couldn't find the fairway. And I knew this was going to be a long week. And the only thing I practiced in the practice rounds, as much as anything, was my short game around the greens, because I knew I was going to miss a lot of greens, and I'd better miss them in the right spots. So I tried to practice hitting shots from well in front of the greens if I hit it in the heavy rough, and try to hit shots where I knew the pins were going to be, the flags were going to be, and I did that. In the first 2 rounds, I played terribly from off the tee, but I hit the ball so far offline. I was in the gallery a lot, and that's where the rough was trampled down, so I had shots up to the greens, and I struggled around. I should have shot about almost 80 the first round, but I birdied 3 out of the last 5 holes and ended up shooting even par. Okay, well, when's the dam going to, when is the dam going to collapse? Second day it was going badly, and then I birdied 3 out of the last 4 holes. And, just trying to stay in there and still hitting the ball sideways off the tee. And that afternoon, Friday afternoon, I went to the practice range as I always did, and after the round, and tried to find something that was going to work with my golf swing, and I did. After about an hour of practice, I found a move that helped me, and then the next 2 days, I hit the ball beautifully. It was just the light switch went on. And so it was a lot easier playing the last 2 days because I was in the fairway a lot. And the last day, I just made about every putt I looked at, and had the lead going into the 16 where I hit a bad drive in the bunker and was fortunate to make bogey, and then the 17th hole happened. I pulled my tee shot, the 2-iron, to the left of the green, and made a lucky chip, and the rest is history. I birdied the last hole to win the tournament I wanted to win the most, our National Open, and over the greatest player in the game, Jack Nicklaus.
And I think we'll get back to the final round in a sec, but just as far as your familiarity with the course, having played there, how much had you played there being at Stanford? Did you make trips over there often when you were growing up a few years ago?
When I was at Stanford, I probably played Pebble probably a dozen times at the most. I had a great in with the starter there who gave me a free pass to play on Saturday mornings before anybody teed off. His name was Ray Parga. He was part of the 40 Thieves, a bunch of guys that love to play golf in their spare time. And I'll always be grateful to Ray for his generosity to me as a kid to be able to go out and play Pebble for free. Of course, that time the greens fees were really expensive. I think they were like $15.
A little different than today. So you talked about some of the swing adjustments you made going into the weekend. You're paired with Bill Rogers going to the final round, and Bill said later that you could just tell on the first tee, going through the first few holes, that Watson was locked in. He's locked in that final day. You get to 10, and you have to make a really good up and down on 10, right? From near the cliff.
Mm-hmm.
You talk a little bit about that and just to the early part of the back nine before we get to 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, well, the first part of the day, I made a couple of birdies early, but Jack had started running the tables. I think he was 4 or 5 under par, and as you can do at Pebble Beach with the short early holes, and so I knew it was going to be a race. It was going to be a race. Jack and I were locked in there, and Bill was still in there as well, Bill Rogers, and I missed a short birdie putt at 7, no more than about 2.5 feet, and then I made a good par-saving putt at 8 after leaving my putt short about 6 feet. 9, I played a good hole at 9, which is the toughest hole on the golf course to me. And then 10 happened. Hit a beautiful drive, and I pushed my second shot into the junk to the right, into the hazard. I was just hoping that I'd have a swing and maybe a shot to get the ball out on the green somewhere. And I actually had a pretty decent lie, and I chopped it up to the front edge, and I made it from about 25 or 30 feet. And then I made another long putt on the 11th hole. And I made another long putt at 14. And so I made those 3 long putts right there to stay ahead of Jack. And that it was a magical day, not only off the tee, but also with the putter. And that middle section right there was awfully important making those putts.
Next question is kind of a two-parter. Did you know, or did you often look at where you stood in the tournament, in the championship? We'll start with that one. So
Sure.
Jack was in front of you. He's a few holes in front, so he had posted his score. You knew exactly where you stood going in.
Well, I always watch the scoreboards when I play. I want to know what my options are. You always, it doesn't put any more pressure or less pressure knowing what the other players are doing. Maybe a little bit less pressure if they mess up, but I'm always looking at the scoreboard, and I have a game plan. I have a course management plan that I use, and it doesn't really change a whole lot, but at the end it can, knowing your position. That's not good not to know your position, in my opinion.
1977 Turnberry, you're playing with Jack in the final round. You know exactly where he is shot by shot. 77 Masters, 82 US Open, you're playing behind him. What do you find easier? Would you rather be playing with Jack Nicklaus, or would you rather, or any competitor for that matter, or did you, you were close with toward the top of the leaderboard, or did it matter to you at that time?
I don't think it mattered very much at all. It's just, you know, you go out and you play the golf course, and that's essentially what it is. But you know, at the Masters in '77, I didn't know what Jack did at 18. I had to ask, was that putt for a par or a birdie? Because I heard a kind of a groan, and you know, it didn't sound like a missed birdie putt groan. It sounded like a missed par putt groan. And I had to ask somebody, was that for par or is that for bogey? And they said, well, he made bogey, so now I have a 2-shot lead. So knowing your position, you know, it made me understand what my second shot's options were. And really didn't change too much. Really, I didn't think, you know, any differently about my second shot there. But at the U.S. Open of '82, I knew that I was tied with Jack going into the last 2 holes after making bogey at 16. So I had to, you know, hit a good shot at 17, which is maybe the toughest par 3 to hit, the green, in any championship there ever was. In fact, in the last Open Championship, and when was it played, in 2010, I believe that I played there, and only 5 players in the final day hit the 17th green regulation. It's that tough a green to hit. And in '77, kind of the same way. You're back there hitting a long iron with a crosswind in your face, and you're trying to hit a shot in there. I hit a pretty good shot. I hooked it a little too much, but my position wasn't very good. Let's put it that way. Yeah, after my tee shot at 17, but I made the best of it.
Yeah, and you know, a story you've told a million times. You know, going over the chip, you walk up to the ball.
Sorry, but we're gonna hold for just a second to wait for that helicopter to go by.
Okay.
Is that what that was? Is that a helicopter?
Yeah, or a plane, or.
Sounds good. I'll start asking the questions. Sounds like it's
Sorry about that.
No, no problem. You walk up to that
Sorry.
ball, and it seems like you have
So
a pretty decent lie, but very difficult chip, a little green to work with. Talk about your conversation with your caddy, Bruce Edwards, and really what you're trying to do with that chip.
Well, the first conversation I had was walking off the tee after hitting the 2-iron left, and I, in disgust, I said, well, that's dead. And Bruce lifted me up. He said, no, come on, let's get it up and down. That's what he said. And when he got up over the ball, the lie wasn't terrible, but it was on the downslope in heavy grass. And as I picked the sandwich up out of the bag, Bruce said, get it close. And I said, get it close, hell, I'm going to hole it. And that was my intentions, to hit the flag, because it was a tough pitch shot. I couldn't, you know, the chances of knocking it well past were pretty good, and hit a great shot. And, you know, it's going to end up, you know, 6 or 8 feet past the hole. And you know, as it turned out, I hit it right on the line I was trying to hit. It broke right, as I thought it was going to do, and hit the middle of the flag and dropped in for 2. And when I was going toward the middle of the flag, I said, just hit the middle of the flag. Just don't hit the edge, either edge, and roll around the hole and stay out. And it just dropped in. And that, you know, that was a lucky shot, but it was well hit, and it was planned. I planned the shot that way to try to hit the flag, and as luck would have it, yeah, Lady Luck was smiling on me. It went in.
You had a plan, you executed it, made birdie there. So now you're up 1. 18's a par 5 at Pebble, but certainly no cakewalk there. You know, lots of trouble on the left. So I think people focus a lot on the chip, and maybe rightfully so, but championships certainly still isn't over just on 18 with a 1-stroke lead. Take us up to 18th hole. You know, why you decided to hit 3-wood off the tee, and just the thoughts going through your mind as you're going up the 72nd hole.
Well, 3-wood's the right play there. You know, it was rolling pretty well, so I knew I could get the 3-wood past the trees. But the key was that if I pushed the 3-wood to the right, it wouldn't go out of bounds. Out of bounds is right there to the right. People don't realize that you've got the water to the left, yes, but you've got out of bounds to the right as well. So you've got to play a shot in there. I hit a wonderful 3-wood, as far as I could ever hit a 3-wood, and I laid up with a 7-iron, then hit a 9-iron past the flag, and I needed 2 putt to win the tournament by 1. I hit the putt, and it was another putt that went in, and it was about from 20 feet. And my dad, when I called him afterwards, the first thing he said, "Why didn't you lag that putt? It would have gone 5 feet by." I said, "Nah, Dad, it was going to go about 2 or 3 inches by." But that was a lie. It was going to go probably about 3 or 4 feet by if it missed.
And you rolled it in, win by 2, and then Jack reached you coming off the 18th green. Just as he did in Turnberry, kind of put you in a headlock, half Nelson there, the story you just told Steve. What did he say to you coming off 18 at Pebble?
Well, he said, "Well, you little son of a bitch, you did it to me again." But he's laughing when he said it. He was, that was, did it to me again because I'd made that long putt at Turnberry on the 15th hole. I'd made, an improbable shot, and I don't know what it was. At times I could do that, but it happened against Jack a couple times.
Last question, 82. Looking back 30 years later, reflecting, what does that chip in on 17, and what does the overall championship, winning that U.S. Open championship, that National Open that you always wanted to do, that your dad wanted you to have, what does that mean 30 years later for you?
Well, the U.S. Open, our National Open, meant the most to me. I wanted to win it the most. I had opportunities to win early in my career in '74 and '75, and again in '80. But I had, I had the opportunities, and they just weren't coming along. I didn't finish the deal, and finally, as luck would have it, with a lucky chip, I finished the deal in '82, and it meant, it was a watershed moment where I had won the tournament I wanted to win most. And that phone call to my father that afternoon, or that late afternoon, was about as happy a phone call as I've ever made in my life, other than the phone call with my children being born.
I bet. Last couple of questions, a little separate on USGA stuff, more of a sustainability and health of the game question. If, say, you were in charge of golf in the United States, if there was some sort of position, what would you advocate to make the game healthier? The USGA, our stance isn't necessarily say we want to grow the game, but we want to make the game as healthy as possible. If you could do whatever you want to make that possible, what would that be?
The most important element is to get parents involved in teaching their kids how to play golf, or teaching them, giving them the passion to play. And that right now is a difficult situation. We've got the social media, cell phone, time wasting element of our society, which is it's an addiction, and it's hard to find the time to play a game that's hard and takes a long time to play, such as golf.
And another one, how can courses, architects, and us, the USGA, as the governing body, make the game more welcoming, either to people who haven't been involved, they left the game and are thinking about coming back, or women, minorities who maybe just haven't had that welcoming feeling in the game?
The game is a hard game. That's the bottom line. It's a hard game to learn. Get the ball airborne. You need to do that, and you need to you have perseverance to do that, and you need people who have the passion and the patience with you to see you through that opening the opening learning curve of the game. And do we have enough time to do that? That's the big question.
And last question is, the USGA is starting the U.S. Amateur 4-ball coming up next year,
Mm-hmm.
the Olympic Club. Just talk a little bit about partner golf and your experiences in playing 4-ball in your career.
Well, playing a 4-ball is what everybody plays when they're playing a normal round of golf. You pick teams, you go play against each other, you play a Nassau bet, you play skins or team skins, you play all kinds of different things, and you compete against each other. And it's the most common form of playing golf with a partner. And it's great that the USGA has introduced this, because it's going to receive great attention, and it's going to be something very, very special for the game of golf here in the United States.
Okay, Don, that's all I got. Thanks so much.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Absolutely. Wonderful stuff.